So the senses are not the sense organs themselves, right? So the senses is that incoming impulse which is coming in the what you call sense channel. The sense organs play their part only when the senses are transmitted to the physical brain. I don't know if this has become clear to anyone. What is happening over here? Huh? Are you able to get it?
It might be helpful if you could
No,
elaborate.
try to understand what he's saying. Try to understand what he's saying. Huh?
ના ના મારો બંધ છે.
Somebody is not on mute.
Yeah, they're on mute. They've been muted now.
Sanket?
Rajen
Sanket,
uncle.
just where are you?
અત્યારે મહાબળેશ્વરમાં છું.
Okay.
કાશ્મીરથી પાછા આવી ગયા.
Somebody told me you were in what do you call?
કાશ્મીરમાં હતા. ના, પહેલગામમાં નહોતા.
Okay.
શ્રીનગરમાં જ હતા, પછી પાછા 2 દિવસમાં પાછા નીકળી ગયા.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the senses are not the sense organs themselves. The sense organs play their part only when the senses are transmitted to the physical brain. Can you imagine what he's saying over here? No, you're not getting it.
Is he saying that
if there's no desire to see,
right, but the
even
sense
though the
organs
eyes can
are
see,
not
they will not
working, we are not registering in. And
Who's that? Who said that? Desire to see?
I think that was Varun. Varun,
Ah.
was that you?
We don't know.
Yeah, the voice sounded like Varun.
organs.
there's no desire to see, even if the eyes can see, they will not see. Something like that.
No. Try to get this in chronological order. Huh? Try to get this in chronological order. So the senses are not the sense organs themselves. This we did last time. Right? That is, the sense is that which is flowing through the sense channels, right? And it divides itself into two parts, right? One goes to the what do you call registration area. Now that part which has gone to the registration area, try to understand this. The sense organs play their part only when the senses are hello. Good afternoon. બોલો. Reading ચાલુ છે? હા, હવે આવી જાઓ. હા. Did you get the chronological order, Ketan? What he's saying?
Yeah, so basically senses come in through the sense channels in the subtle body. From there, they get divided into two parts. One goes into the registration area. Sorry, one goes into the registration area of the brain, and the second goes to the sense organs.
Sense organs. But he's saying the sense organs play their part only when the senses are transmitted to the physical brain. You try to understand what he's saying is that I put my finger in the water and I feel wet. Right? But what is happening is that there is a picture of my feeling wet in the brain, right? And then the sense organ is registering that I'm feeling wet. No, you're not getting it. You're not getting it.
So, so are you saying that there is that past memory of what wet feels like, that which is there in the physical brain, and
No,
that past memory of being wet has also been accessed?
no, you're not getting it. What does Gurdjieff say? Impressions come in through the five senses.
Yes, yes.
And when Gurdjieff uses the word senses, it is sense organs,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's saying impressions come in through the. Now, what he's saying is that the sense organ is doing the registering after the brain has done the registering. This is what he's saying over here. If you put this in chronological order, he's saying that the sense organs are doing the registering after the brain. Then everything what Gurdjieff says is wrong. Because first the brain is creating the picture in the this thing, and then the sense organs are getting involved. They
So
are not
picture
getting.
comes first.
Yes, 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 yes.
I feel wet not because I put my hand in the water. I feel wet because my brain has made a picture of my feeling wet.
Hmm.
You get it? Anyway, we'll read further on, but I was a little shocked by this
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So this
Right?
is the what he's saying, right? The impulses enter the primary astral body through the five sense channels, flow as senses into the physical body, and reach the sense organs. So that is one part.
And yeah, one part goes goes to the sense organs, and one part goes to the brain.
Registration centers in the brain. So simultaneously, they reach the registration centers in the brain.
But the sense organs come into play only after the brain has done the registering.
That means we do not develop the
Bhavya,
sensitivity.
if you could scroll down just by one line. Yeah. So
Now,
sense organs.
this he calls modifications, which go, what do you call, Patanjali calls as vritti. He calls as modification. And if that modification there in the brain area can stop, then the sense must be experiencing it directly from that part which went into the senses.
Can you please
I
just say
don't-
the last line again? The last line that he just said? Right now?
If you can draw a diagram for somebody, then people will understand it
Yes,
more
yes.
easily.
I will.
By repeating it even 10 times, people are not going to understand.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Let me try to draw a diagram. Sure.
નિમિષે તારે કઈ બોલવું હોય તો બોલજે. તો મોઢે છે બધું.
Senses are getting, so even if sense organs are not working, a person is blind, a person can see.
હા.
In that case, once the senses are taking up the impression first, if sense organ is not working, like in case of optic atrophy, in our case, in eye, we say that person is blind forever. There is no treatment for it. But once impression is going to the senses, that is in the astral body, even if a person is physically blind, that is not a treatable condition. A person can see, like Beethoven make a music, even though he was deaf.
Deaf, right.
So that is an example.
So what she's saying is very clear. Okay, if the sense organ is not working, but this other pathway is working, then even Beethoven can hear the music because he's deaf.
એક શરણાનંદ આપણે હતા રાજનભાઈ, એ બધું
એની વાત કરો માં છેલ્લા દિવસોમાં તો 1.5-2 કલાક એમની સાથે બેઠો હતો.
તો સાંભળવું પડશે.
Okay, if people could just not touch the screen, maybe that can help. આ whiteboard માં છે ને એવું છે કે જે પણ anyone can draw, so I'm just figuring out If 1 second, I'm just figuring out how can
So an impulse is coming in.
yes. Yes. So there's this impulse that's coming in. Yep, this impulse that's coming in. And this impulse enters the astral body.
Enters the primary body.
Yeah,
Right. It
primary
enters the
body.
primary.
Primary
And
body.
it goes through a sense channel.
Yeah, via sense.
The sense channel and the impulses he calls as the senses.
Yep. Sense channels.
Now
plus. Yep. Now this splits into two.
Right. Now this senses split into two.
Yep.
One part goes to the sense organ.
Yeah. One part goes to the sense organs. Yes.
Organ. And one part goes to the registration area.
Registration center in the brain. And
Brain.
then registration center in the brain. Registration center is in the physical brain.
Right. The sense organ recognizes the the impulse after the registration in the registration area. This is what he's saying.
And then after this, there is the after this there is the recognition by the sense organ. After this,
Registering and interpreting of the by the brain areas, he calls as modification. He just now used the word modification.
got it. And this is called
Right.
modification. Okay.
Right? But if this can be paused, then the other part which has gone directly to the sense organ will recognize direct through the sense which has gone there. And there will be direct recognition.
Without involvement of
Without the modification of the brain area,
registration area.
registration area. I think you can make a chart of this and
Yes, I will make a chart of this and we'll circulate it to everyone in the next few hours.
yeah. So now Mehul asks a question over here. What part will attention pay? So attention will only, what do you call, come into operation at the point of registration by the brain area. Or at the point of registration by the sense organ.
So if this second pathway, if the lower pathway is paused, that becomes vritti nirodh. And if that happens, then directly this perception occurs. Directly this perception occurs.
sense organ वाला भाग नीचे
Sir,
आता
is
है।
this is what is we call pure darshan, the upper one?
Pure darshan, because the registration in the brain areas will be again conditioned by memory, habits, everything. Ne?
Yes.
So, sir, all higher knowledge or intuition, everything will come into that part.
Into that part. Anyway, we'll read ahead. Keep this chart if you want. You can send it to everyone.
Yes.
Right.
I'll just.
But you should have taken the sense organs down. You should have taken the sense organs down and the brain up. You've done the whole chart in Shirsasana.
Isn't this Pratyahar? Pratyahar.
Last time you told me. Gold's language.
Huh?
What were you asking? Varun, were you asking a question?
Won't this be Pratyahar or something? Pratyahar.
Or can this be the prism exercise?
Pratyahar is the separation of senses from the sense organs.
Organs.
It is Pratyahar.
Yeah. Right?
What I have understood, Rajan, till date is that when you work on the incoming impulse entering the senses, that is pratyahar. What we call pratyahar is when it reaches the registration area.
Right.
We say, I was drinking a tea and I was watching that Nimisha is drinking a tea. But it's not like that. When the incoming impulse reaches the senses, at that time, if you work at that level, that is pratyahar. And another thing, yes.
But how do we work there? It is so fast.
It is so fast.
Attention will not work over there. Only energy of sensitivity will work there.
And another point I have understood till now, Sahib says incoming impulse enters into the brain area. Then it changes the pathway. It doesn't go through the memory area. It changes the pathway. Then we call it a memory bypass. He has used that word. So it is all work is being done in the brain itself. And here the work is between primary body and secondary body. So I just wanted to understand a modification you said. If you prevent it in the primary body, is it a...
No, the modification he said is on register. It is happening. Can we go back to the reading?
Yeah, Bhavya, if you could just share the book again.
Somewhere he has said that this is the modification.
Yes, this slide.
Can we read this whole thing again? I think Alka, you can read it from the beginning again.
So the sense organs play their part only when the senses are transmitted to the physical brain and result in thought forms. Or what?
It calls modifications of the mind. He says it here.
Yeah.
Then from the beginning, this you read the ending.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, from now just.
Now just
Yeah.
That we read, that we don't need to read. Yeah, you can start. So start from here only, the sense organs. Okay, you read,
so the
read
sense
from here
organs may. So the sense organs play their part
then
only
actually
when.
read from the actually the impulses enter the primary body.
Actually, the impulses enter the primary astral body through the 5 sense channels, flow as senses into the physical body, and reach the sense organs.
Sense channels and sense organs are different.
Yeah.
Sense organ is connected with the physical body. And the impulses are going directly into the sense channels into the primary body. Right. Okay. Go ahead.
That is the eyes, ears, etc. Simultaneously, they reach the registration centers in the brain, with the organs getting the necessary messages transmitted therefrom.
So after being registered in the brain, the sense organs get the messages. So it is not the sense organ telling the brain that I have touched something. It is the brain telling the sense organ you have touched something. Supposing I'm touching this table, my skin is not telling the brain that I have touched something, but the brain is telling my skin you have touched something. Because an impulse went through a sense channel, went through the brain area, and the brain area told the, what do you call... See, this is very different from what we, till now, we thought is happening.
Yes.
Nimisha, आवाज आई है तो देखा है. This is very different from a normal understanding karta, बहुत different. Correct?
Definitely.
So આમાં આપણે એવું કહી શકીએ કે sorry, in this can we say that the brain tells that you are touching something, but what you are touching is then later communicated by the sense organs to the brain?
Because in the Shastra, the says that the
Yeah.
tanmatra comes in, right? And the tanmatra is then met by another tanmatra in the sense organs. Now again, I'll have to go back to reading that, because whether the Shastras are talking about senses or sense organs, right? And the tanmatra which comes in, it gives a kind of general tanmatra that this is what you call water element. But the tanmatra which is lying in the sense organ, it gives the feeling, it gives the individual feeling of being wet. And that is a specific tanmatra. So what is coming from outside is a general tanmatra, and within the sense organs there are the specific tanmatra which give our experiences.
Got it. And this
Rajen Vakil, can we link this to the magic and the hypnosis where ice given in the hand of a person, he feels hot because his brain is controlled through some other person?
Yeah. Anyway, let's read ahead. Let's read ahead. Otherwise, we'll get stuck over here. But I don't know. This is all very, very deep. What do you think? Alka, simultaneously.
That is, yes,
Yeah.
simultaneously, they
Rajen, there's a
reach the
question that is there
registration
on chat.
centers in the brain.
What were you saying?
There's a question on chat.
Oh,
Dhruvi has asked,
yeah. What's the question?
How do impulses directly enter into the sense channels?
So we are going to discover that. Yeah, no, it's okay. we are on a path of discovery of how the impulses directly enter the sense channel.
One practical question, how the energy of sensitivity is produced? You said that only the energy of sensitivity can work on that. So how it is produced?
So when we go into the 7 energies, which centers produce which energy, we'll have to work upon that. Right? Which center produce. What is happening is, because we are so conditioned by Gurdjieff for nearly 40 years. Since 1980, early 80s, we've been reading with Bhagwan, and each book, 10 war, and psychological commentaries I may have read 100 times. So all this is now very, foreign. Very, very foreign. Not only that, it is totally cutting off Gurdjieff completely. Completely it is cutting. And it is very easy to understand now because of Gurdjieff.
Okay.
Which is also. So let's go ahead. Tell Urvi, we'll find out where the sense channels come in. Yeah.
Simultaneously, they reach the registration centers in the brain, with the organs getting the necessary messages transmitted therefrom. That is why in the Shastras it is said that the senses are not the sense organs themselves. This is very necessary to grasp properly. Please ponder over this, as many misunderstandings will be cleared.
It only increase. The confusion increases. The misunderstandings get cleared. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So the sense organs play their part only when the senses are transmitted to the physical brain and result in thought forms.
Right.
Or what sage Patanjali calls modifications of the mind, which are molecular in nature.
Right. So they are not seen by the sense organs, right? They are not indriya gamya. Right.
Indriyatik. They are in the picture form.
Right. No, if they are
The
picture form seen,
Modification or
they have to be in some form which is not seen by then only it can be molecular. No? If
we can recognize, then it is not molecular.
it is no longer molecular. Somebody has put color into it.
The modifications of the mind in the average person are merely an automatic reflex action, which passes off as normal thinking.
Yeah, what Gurdjieff calls mechanical, right?
The reactions of the individual by way of thought forms are the individual's mental exertions.
Excretions.
And excretions, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So he's saying that normal thinking is nothing but diarrhea. That is what he's saying. It's an excretion of the mind, normal thinking, right? So unless there is a pause somewhere and the modification is what you call pause somewhere, nirodh somewhere, till then it is just a mental form of mental excretion.
And what care?
Perspective add કરવાનું તમે કહેતા હતા બીજા perspective થી એને જોવાનું.
You have to bring in consciousness. Then it is not reflex action. Then it is not reflective.
And what care do we take of them as is expected of us? As in the case of physical excretions.
What do we have to do? Do we have to keep on excreting? Or do we have to do something about that and stop it?
Basically, they're not worthy of taking care, is what they say. Till we do so, and by law enforce it, we are not truly civilized.
Right. Because all these reflex actions will be full of aggression, full of tamas, full of this thing, and that is why we are not civilized, right? We are full of what do you call hinsa in all of them, right?
That is why that is because coloring is done at ISM center and ratio is 2:4:8:2 there.
2:4:8:2.
If it is 5:2:1,
then it's different. That can only happen after the pause.
The generation of these energies, we have noted, obeys laws just as everything in existence is subject to law.
Right. Which energies is it?
This is energy of life and awareness. He started with that before he
life
went
and
to the
awareness. Right.
Whether their flow and quality will increase or decrease depends solely on the positive or negative efforts of the individual.
So energy of life comes in as incoming impulses, and energy of awareness at present is identical memory pattern, right? And what is the ratio in each of tamas, rajas, and sattva will decide the thing. Yeah.
As these two vital energies grow dimmer or less abundant, then diseases, sickness, coma, and old age come in.
Right.
And when they cease, the individual also ceases to live.
Yeah.
Various reasons based on various laws are responsible for their malfunctioning or ceasing to function. See the intensity charts.
Yeah.
Breathing, too, is a forced action brought about in the physical body by the production of these two vital energies.
So the quality of breathing depends on the ratio of these two vital energies, the quality of these two vital energies. The quality of breathing depends upon that. And if we change the quality of breathing, we change these two vital energies, right?
When death is near, the radiation of the divine fragment, which can never be seen, but its rays passing through the vesture, create a glow that is mistakenly called soul.
Right. We read that once, no, that note of mine. Just
Yes.
I'll read 2 lines from that. That one, right on the right. Right on the right. The big one, right on the right. Oh. I don't want to go into this, just now it will be difficult to read. But in this, he says that the divine fragment is like a Kohinoor diamond, and it is in a what do you call translucent bag. Translucent bag, and that translucent bag, through that the light of the divine fragment comes out. We cannot see the divine fragment, we can only see the light of the divine fragment, and this light he calls as soul. Huh? Now he's saying mistakenly called as soul. Right. Yeah.
When the death is near, the radiation of the divine fragment withdraws from all extremities. And with this, the energies of life and awareness wither and are not generated anymore within the computerized organism.
Yeah, go ahead.
So life and awareness seem to ooze out from the fingers, palms of the hands, and lower limbs, and finally from the face and head, with the feeling of cold coming all over.
Yeah, and this can be felt if you're near a person who is dying, and you can bring sensitivity to this, where you see that all your relationship with that person is flowing out from you and going into him, and flowing out from him and going back into you. So it is sort of everything is separating on a very natural level, except in our memory and sentimentality, everything else is separating over there.
Our memory and sentimentality should not work at that point of time. So it becomes natural. That's what you want to say?
It becomes natural, and we are also able to experience what the person is going through, the death. Because he's pulling back all the energy, right? And all our relationship with him, say 40 years, 30 years, all that is now separating at that moment. Right. So this is what he's saying, they ooze out energy of life and awareness.
The ordinary person who has not practiced the higher steps of scientific yoga can do nothing about this. That person has to go and in a state of complete unconsciousness.
Right.
There are 3 warnings of the oncoming of the symptoms of death. 88% die at the fist approach. At the fist approach.
The first approach, it should be, yeah.
First approach.
The spelling mistake, yeah.
And 98% do not survive the second approach.
Right.
The warning comes with blood receding from the feet, palms, and head, and the person looks bluish greenish. Right. Slowly, these symptoms spread all over the entire body, but a circle on the chest near the heart still remains the normal color of the skin, provided the skin is fair. Otherwise, it is difficult to judge. In this case, a person may revive if medical attention is available instantly. In most cases of swoon, the person appears dead, but actual death does take a little time. Revival can be effected if this warning is not final.
We can do something even after the 98% one, right? Okay. Yeah. You have to scroll up. Bhavya.
By use of some sophisticated equipment, Science will in future be able to make use of the awareness of the organism to make the organism look alive at the first warning of death. And the person can once again recognize known people.
And he'll come back. He'll come back from the swoon, which he talked about. Yeah.
But in the interest of the dead, this may not be done. The awareness of the organism itself, which is but the leftover energies of life and awareness in the organism, is limited, and these energies are slowly extinguished unless some sort of artificial energy supply is given to the organism. Should these treatments
So
and
if we are
instruments
putting on a ventilator, then energy of life and awareness due to breathing will be produced in a certain quantity. Yeah.
Should these treatments and instruments continue, even then the body will ultimately collapse someday. From the first moment of clinical death, the organism may be preserved by chemicals to function, but awareness will diminish to zero. Those who have practiced nightly during their lifetime, refer chapters 12, 13 later, can at first warning, if they so desire, consciously create sufficient heat or high fever within the organism by certain pranayama practices, and then the organism becomes normal again.
Okay, so after the first warning, right, by certain pranayama practices, we can come back also, and we can also, what do you call, create sufficient heat, right, by the pranayama practice to become normal again.
This will leave the organism weak for 3 days.
Yeah,
This
this
is
I've
done.
seen. This I've seen happening. Yeah.
Which case?
You see,
In Bapu's case, I've seen this happening. Okay, at least I know of 3 instances where somebody was dying and he gave life to that person. And then for 3 days, he was in terrible temperature and all that. So exactly what, if you can just repeat this. And one was my grandfather. And my grandfather was, he knew, okay, now the time has come, it's to go. And I could feel it. I was sitting next to him. And he then asked me, is Bapu in Bombay? So I said, Bapu is in Bombay. So he says, call him now only, call him now. Right. And my uncle and aunt with whom they were very against Bapu coming there. But I told my aunt I'm calling him. And I phoned Nilu. He was at Nilu Bhai's house. And Nilu Bhai brought Bapu. And my grandfather in some time started feeling better. Bapu sat a couple of hours with him. And next day, Bapu was in high temperature, 103, 104 temperature for 3 days it lasted. And I told my grandfather that wherever he has done this experiment, right, he has done it for you. I don't know why he has done it for you, but the person lasts only for 6 months after that. And exactly after 6 months, he left. So I've seen this happen. Then again, he did it for another Swami over here. What was his name? Well, Bapu, I've forgotten his name just now. I can't remember.
Have you ever asked Bapu why he did this to this particular people? Like time of death is sure in each and everyone's case.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing to answer.
Okay.
That's a difficult thing to answer.
That means you can also do it.
No, I cannot do it. But it's very difficult because the answer would be he did it out of love for me. It's a very difficult thing to answer. Very difficult.
That you can have a perception only, you can't explain it.
And I can't, it would be my ego.
Yes.
Right. Let's go ahead.
I'll read that again. Those who have practiced nightly during their lifetime, refer chapters 12, 13 later, can at first warning, if they so desire, consciously create sufficient heat or high fever within the organism by certain pranayama practices, and then the organism becomes normal again. This will leave
This
the
is for the
organism.
person himself, but what I've seen is for somebody else. Huh?
This will
Yeah,
leave
go
the
ahead.
organism weak for this will leave the organism weak for 3 days. This is done if there is good reason for survival and not otherwise. This is possible only for those who can take conscious birth or can die consciously.
Consciously, right.
So when a person dies, these two vital energies are generated no more. Simultaneously, the divine fragment collects itself and moves from the heart center, Anahata, to Bindu during waking hours,
Right.
where it is at in
Second thing
sleep.
is that the second thing is that normally the divine fragment during waking hours is at the anahat. But now when death is approaching, the divine fragment moves from anahat to the bindu during waking hours. Right? Okay. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, yeah.
Where it is at in sleep every night and departs from Bindu through the skull. Without fracturing it, of course.
But there are techniques where it is fractured also.
Fractured also.
Yeah, and we see that in that serial of Saint Peter. I don't know how many of you have seen that serial, right? Where Christ comes to Saint Peter and says that now the time for you to be crucified has come, and you will be crucified on the cross the same way I was crucified. And Saint Peter, then he tells Saint Peter that you tell them that when they what do you call, crucify you, to turn the cross upside down. So nobody can die in a Sirshasan position. This is the one position in which death is not possible. But the only way you can die in Sirshasan is if the divine fragment breaks the top of the skull and goes out. And because Saint Peter had not reached that state, Christ made this possible in his death. Bhavya, you can see if you can get that serial, Saint Peter.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everyone has heard it, but they also say that it can leave through different spaces. In some cases, the divine fragment leaves through the ears, through the nose, through the mouth. I don't know
No,
if that
it will
is.
either go through the nose or it will go through the top of the skull.
Okay.
So for a normal mechanical man, it will leave through the nose. And for a person who has practiced conscious death, it will go through the top of the skull. Here he says it does not break the point in the skull, but there are what you call certain societies where it does break and go through. Right.
Because when I was young, I'd met a Vastu person who had very young. There was a Vastu person. He said that his grandfather left from the skull, and the skull was actually fractured.
Yeah, yeah, that is possible. That is possible. Right.
Isn't it that divine fragment can go through Muladhara also? A person,
Yeah.
when the physical body, either urine has passed or stool has passed. If it goes through the nose, some watering, or if it goes through the mouth is opened.
Yeah.
Ear you can't say because ear is.
No, but that has nothing to do with the divine fragment.
Okay. So
that has nothing to do with the divine fragment. That the body releases all its juices and everything, right, at that moment. So whatever stool or whatever is accumulated will this thing.
Okay.
That is why the Rajputs used to take opium. Ne? If you take opium, you don't feel like going for the toilet. So before war, they would take a lot of opium. So then if they die in the war, their body does not release stool. So otherwise it will sumabo kapai.
This suggests how kind of life you have lived.
No, no, it is a normal thing. It is a normal thing. Normal thing.
Bindu is a dimensionless point that has no
There
measurement.
is something over here. If the body has stopped making sperm, if the body has stopped making sperm, then there'll be no release of sperm. Otherwise, there'll be release of sperm also collected in the body. Go ahead.
So when a person dies, these two vital energy, never mind. Bindu is a dimensionless point that has no measurement, but is shown in the diagrams, charts in the appendix. It is a misconception that it departs from Sahasrara.
Yeah.
On the death of an individual, the physical body is disposed of according to different rites and ceremonies, whereas the astral body that was conjoined can exist for some longer time, being more subtle, elastic, and self-conscious.
Oh, yeah.
The divine fragment takes the astral body along with it up to the seventh substage of Bhuva. For beyond this, the astral cannot go. And then, after releasing it, continues to the ring past knot, the Maha region, to rest in the causal body allotted to it, till fresh birth is taken.
Right. And what you call the astral body falls down to the astral region.
Okay, this is
right?
Next line is this.
Acha.
The astral body then floats down in dream state. If
Yeah,
certain
this happens.
practices,
This happens in 3 stages. This happens in 3 stages, right? So it leaves the divine fragment, then it comes back and again has darshan of the divine fragment, and it comes back and has darshan of it. But each time the darshan is different, and then it falls. So it is like it is not a complete falling action. It is a bouncing action kind of thing.
astral body then floats down in dream state. If certain practices are not carried out during earth life till it reaches the astral plane it belongs to. An average person belongs to this earth stage only or worse, and then disintegrates completely.
Rajan, what would these different astral planes be?
There are 7 astral regions, ne?
7 stages.
7 astral regions, Bhuva.
Okay.
So if that person in life has only lived in negative emotions, he will be at a very lower astral plane. But if he has lived at a place where he has been very generous and this thing, he'll live at a different astral plane. And if he can bring consciousness to the astral plane, then there will be a different astral plane. So if he has practiced bringing consciousness in his dreams, then he'll be at a different astral plane.
Shall I read further?
Yeah. Read one more paragraph.
Yeah. Okay. In this afterlife of the primary body, that is between the death and the rebirth of the individual, there's a period known as the disembodied state. The physical body is missing, but the astral is existing, and the divine fragment has returned to the Maharegion. The primary body now regains its awareness to some extent and finds the secondary missing, but does not know that on astral planes, by just wishing one could regain it, and so is miserable.
Yes. Okay. For this we can practice. We should practice every day. And one of the things which Gold does with his Bardo town or whatever he has created, I've never been inside it, but it is this, that You have to be able to find your way in the region after death. Right? So Ivan, shall we stop here?
Yeah, sure.
Right? We meet
Yeah,
next
sure.
week. We'll meet next
Yeah,
week.
sure.
Right.
Thank you, Rajan.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you.
Thank you.